Hello everyone, I am Julian Morris with the Channel 5 News. In the headlines, the promise of an exciting budget on Tuesday, while government expenditure continues to exceed revenue. The APP launches a vote-in-place campaign which would help overseas-based Dominicans vote in the country's elections. And LIAT could be back in the air in 2 or 3 months' time after shareholder governments agree on a plan to rescue the airline. The details coming up.
Avec flow, gagner l'argent, on partit l'argent avec flow. Gagner l'argent, on gros sac l'argent. C'est juste ça pour gagner un gros sac l'argent avec flow. Animez on top up, sign up, quittez yo, et venez joindre flow. It only gets better with flow.
Flow terms and conditions apply.
Are you still washing your hands regularly, wearing your mask in public, and practicing social distancing? 0 cases does not mean COVID-free. Stay home if you're not well to keep others from getting sick. Continue to avoid crowds in public spaces. Always keep your guard up. We're still fighting this together. This is a public service announcement from the Dominica Red Cross.
Flow helps you stay connected to what matters. Simple plans and a better network mean that you can enjoy 7 days of unlimited social messaging, 3 gigabytes of reliable data to use as you like, 700 local anywhere calls and texts with the always-on prepaid plan, all for $29. Keep your number when you switch to Dominica's most reliable LTE network. Buy wherever you top up. Switch to Flow. It only gets better.
First up in the news, the Prime Minister says Dominicans should expect some exciting things in the upcoming national budget despite the challenges. The budget statement for the fiscal year 2020-21 will be presented in Parliament on Tuesday. This budget will be presented in the context of challenges posed by COVID-19.
We've never had this in our lifetime with our country's borders completely closed, the entire world borders completely closed. Movement, hotels shut down, restaurants shut down, barbershops, churches. This has certainly affected every single citizen, every sector of our economy, the global economy, certainly. We try to reopen our borders very cautiously, very carefully, and because we really can't afford in this country and in the Caribbean for another national shutdown. That would be disastrous.
It's expected to focus on opportunities created by current global challenges.
This is what we'll be seeking to do in this year's budget. Obviously, one has to appreciate that the budget is only 12 months. It is a planning for 12 months and not for 5 years or 10 years. But certainly you plan for these 12 months, you seek to implement projects that can benefit the country in years to come, and so setting the foundation, setting the walls, and in terms of building the home and building the country. Now we are still rebuilding from Maria as well, and now with COVID-19, we have seen a dramatic impact on our revenues. While we have seen an impact on our revenues, our expenditure have gone up. Quite naturally so, because we've had to provide income support to people who lost their jobs or whose incomes were affected. We've had to provide small business loans to citizens whose businesses were affected.
Mr. Skerritt says if properly implemented, the budget proposals can have a positive impact on the lives of citizens. Dominica's newest political party, the Alternative People's Party APP, has decided to add its voice to the call for electoral reform. Interim Executive Member in charge of Youth and Women Outreach, Sharon Vidal, says the party has launched a campaign dubbed Vote in Place or VIP to help with achieving electoral reform.
What the Vote in Place does, it gives the opportunity for persons living in the diaspora to vote where they reside. So one of the biggest issues with this last election season was diaspora Dominicans You're coming down to vote. Why would you come down to vote? You don't do anything here. Blah. That eliminates that. So they will have their representative in the diaspora. They will be able to vote for that particular representative in the diaspora. And in order to vote, they would need 2 forms of ID. Of course, you would need your passport, which is your Dominican ID, to prove that, of course, that you are a citizen of Dominica. And wherever you reside, you would need to bring an ID. So it could be if you're in St. Martin, if you're in the United States, it could be a driver's license. Some countries has national IDs.
Vidal believes if this proposition is adopted, it will allow for Dominicans who live overseas to participate in the country's development while working overseas.
Persons have been asking, what do we do about reform? And we've come up with a solution. We've come up with something which aids. And in that aid, more Dominicans will be able to vote. And not only that, the people in the diasporas, they're our citizens, they're our friends, they're our families. Why keep them away from developing their country? One good way of having them to develop is like they're playing a special part. So they are able to vote, but they will be able to vote wherever they live. Because we're in 2020. I mean, come on, electronic things are everywhere. So there are already countries who do that. So why should it be so hard for us?
In other news now, one taxi operator pleased at the reopening of the country's borders despite the ongoing global pandemic. And Joel has that story.
DDA's Taxi Tours and Services is among the many operators who ran taxi services from the Douglas Charles Airport and saw their income dry up due to the non-arrival of passengers to the country. Earlier this month, the government announced that the borders would reopen on 15th July to nationals living overseas, while August 7th would be the date that non-nationals can visit the country. Owner of DDA's Taxi Tours and Services, who had been an airport taxi driver for several years, says he is happy that flights have resumed at the Douglas Charles Airport, though on a smaller scale.
I was happy to hear of the date for the reopening of the borders. It meant that once again I would be able to become sustainable through the means that was open to me, and that is from my tour and taxi service over the years. So I welcome the opening of the borders. So far I've been there twice for the week. Okay, I've been there twice for the week. Not been successful every day. In fact, the first day I was not successful, but the second day I was successful.
In order to be approved to work at the airport, taxi operators had to go through a rigorous and thorough training session, at the end of which they received a COVID-approved sticker.
We were shown how to sanitize our vehicles from outside to inside in a very detailed manner. The officer did a very good job. The other part was at the PSU, and there they showed us how to put on the gloves, take off the gloves, how to put on the mask, take off the mask, and it was quite an interesting program.
Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, DDA's taxi would make anywhere from 1 to 3 trips whenever it visited the airport. However, the health guidelines and calls for social distancing has led to the Airport Taxi Association proposing a price adjustment for passengers.
We are putting the case for a $200 fare from the airport and to the airport, okay? Because of the fact that there's so many health issues, that this COVID has presented, and we want to keep our passengers in a safe environment as possible. From Melville Hall, it was $80 per person. And if the person wanted to go by themselves, then it was $200. So the $200 was already in place.
DDA explained that though the suggestion is for 1 person per cab, allocations are made for families or teams to utilize the same taxi if they request.
And government expenditure continues to exceed its income, and with the national budget just around the corner, the Prime Minister says the situation may not be sustainable. The Prime Minister says with a drop in revenue, cash flow has been affected, but government has been able to do an extraordinary job holding things together. He says this speaks to the experience of government and cabinet.
If you had a completely inexperienced government in these difficult times, would be in serious problems. And this is not a boasting at all. It is just setting a fact on the table. So very quickly we're able to engage the international financial system, to mobilize resources, additional resources to meet our increased obligations. And for us to be able to pay salaries in these periods on time and people's full salaries, it is not something that we should take for granted as a country.
Mr. Skerritt questions the sustainability of the current level of government's recurrent expenditure.
How do you sustain this? How do you sustain having so many students overseas studying? How do you sustain the continued improvement to the infrastructure? How do you sustain the construction of all of these hospitals and health centers across Dominica? How do you sustain the construction of all these homes that we're building? Hundreds of homes, handing over keys to citizens, fixing people's homes, buying new windows and doors for them for this hurricane season. How do you sustain these things? Buying devices for students, so that students who cannot afford can have access to online learning portals and so on. So we have to ask ourselves these questions in the country, and to also ask ourselves, what is going to be my individual contribution to all of this?
You are watching Channel 5 News. We'll have more after this.
With Flow, when I bag our money, cash out. Get a bag of money. What you gonna do with a bag of money? Yeah. From Flow. Yo, check this. Flow is giving away $40,000 in cash. Oh, yeah. 2 bags of money plus $1,000 every Friday. With Flow is better every day, and now we're making Fridays great. That's 3 ways that you can play. So listen up. Top up. $10 more. Sign up. Just switch to Flow. Get a plan. 1 gig or more. If you wanna win cash galore. With Flow. Win a bag of money. Cash out. Get a bag of money. What you gonna do with a bag of money? Yeah. From Flow. So top up, get a plan, or switch now to win. It only gets better with Flow.
Flow terms and conditions apply.
Are you still washing your hands regularly, wearing your mask in public, and practicing social distancing? 0 cases does not mean COVID-free. Stay home if you're not well to keep others from getting sick. Continue to avoid crowds in public spaces. Always keep your guard up. We're still fighting this together. This is a public service announcement from the Dominica Red Cross.
A new in-home experience is here. All your services bundled into one simple plan. Faster, more reliable Wi-Fi so that you can binge, play, and stream uninterrupted. Unlimited Flow local landline minutes mean you can talk and talk and talk. Plus the best in TV entertainment with over 120 channels and 29 in HD. All for $160 a month with the new all-in bundle. With Flow, it only gets better.
Thank you for staying with us. The Ministry of Education officials are concerned over the underperformance of boys at this year's Grade 6 National Assessment. We go again to Andrea Louis for more.
This year's exams was written in mid-June as the COVID-19 crisis in Dominica caused a shutdown of the physical classroom from 23rd March. Online schooling was the way to go as children continued their education using various e-platforms. Senior Education Officer with responsibility for curriculum, measurement and evaluation, Robert Geist, says despite the altered final school term, girls continue to do better than boys during this school-leaving exam.
In every area, the boys are underperforming. The girls are outperforming the boys. And in the strong performance area, the girls are doing much better than the boys. Yeah, this is comparable to last year's results where we had a full year of school. And compared to the shortened year we had this year, as you know, we lost mostly the whole of the 3rd term in face-to-face instruction. So it just goes to show that our online instruction, while it may not have been perfect, but it did work. The scores were relatively the same.
The poor performance of boys at the Grade 6 National Assessment has been a concern of the Ministry of Education for several years. Geist says school size does not have any relation to the performance of pupils.
When we look at the relationship with school size and performance, as in the past, we will see that school size has no direct relationship with the performance. In some very small schools, we see some very high scores, and when we look at the top performing schools, we will see that. We have some small schools performing very well, and we have some big schools not performing as well as those small schools. So school size or class size and performance is no direct relationship.
This year's the top 10 performing schools are Pioneer Prep, Lighthouse Christian Academy, Convent Prep, Jones Beaupierre Primary, Monjon Primary, Girardel Primary, the Christian Union Primary, Clifton Primary, Roosevelt Douglas Primary, and the Atkinson Primary Schools. Andrea Louis, Channel 5 News.
And a public education campaign is underway to persuade Dominicans of the benefits of participating in the digital economy. Government is seeking to impress on citizens that it would be in their best interest to participate in the thrust towards doing business online.
That is why a major component of our World Bank funded digital transformation project includes education and training and retooling, because what we don't want this situation to be something where it is man against machine at all, and then the people are scared or the people are left behind. We want people to view this transformation as being machines and technology would be so used to benefit all of us and improve our livelihood. So with that being said, if we can eliminate that discomfort through education, then we expect a whole lot more people to come along. If we can convince people and we can teach people and educate them and let them know that if we reduce transactional costs, the cost of services will be reduced for them, then I see there will be a bigger bite or a bigger interest in this transformation. If we show people that, you know, hey, here it is that it's not 70,000 people who could become your consumers, but you have access to 6 billion people around the world, then we expect more people to come along. When we can show that that vendor, that the tourists did not buy your basket because they saw it as being too heavy, too bulky to travel, but then if there's an online platform or website with which you could, you know, purchase and ship it later on, then they will recognize that there's more money to be made and so on.
The creation of a ministry to deal with the digital economy is an indication of the degree to which government intends on focusing on that issue. The Minister for Telecoms believes education and awareness is key in this process.
The opportunities are there, and the use of technology, it has opened up a world of opportunities for us. And I think if the average man, you know, the man on the ground, the man in vehicles, the man in Tibo, if that person is convinced that this is a good thing, I think that's the best way we go.
Dominica's experiences with natural disasters has led to greater interest in alternative methods of doing business and sustaining livelihoods.
What it does, it gives us a chance to innovate. Innovation in education, innovation in the way we administer public services, and I think that's a very good thing for us.
And LIAT's major shareholders have reached an agreement with Antigua and Barbuda's Prime Minister Gaston Brown, which could see the airline flying again in 60 to 90 days. The shareholders, which also include the governments of Barbados, St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Dominica, met virtually late on Monday for Brown to present a plan to reorganize the cash-strapped LIAT. Brown announced Tuesday morning, and I quote, "I think that our colleagues understand that there's significant merit in the proposed reorganization plan, and we were able to come to a consensus." He added the meeting went very well. The tone of the meeting was very respectful. The interventions were heard, and we came to the consensus that we should sell the 3 planes that are owned by LIAT and charge to the Caribbean Development Bank. Brown explained that will help to literally eliminate the debt from LIAT's books for these planes, and in addition, the proceeds will be utilized to pay down the loan, even though there would be a residual value. The governments will continue to make payments on the residual value after the proceeds of the planes are applied to the loans at the Caribbean Development Bank.
Flow helps you stay connected to what matters. Simple plans and a better network mean that you can enjoy 7 days of unlimited social messaging, 3 gigabytes of reliable data to use as you like, 700 local anywhere calls and texts with the always-on prepaid plan, all for $29. Keep your number when you switch to Dominica's most reliable LTE network. Buy wherever you top up. Switch to Flow. It only gets better.
Are you still washing your hands regularly, wearing your mask in public, and practicing social distancing? 0 cases does not mean COVID-free. Stay home if you're not well to keep others from getting sick. Continue to avoid crowds in public spaces. Always keep your guard up. We're still fighting this together. This is a public service announcement from the Dominica Red Cross.
With Flow, when I bag our money, cash out. Get a bag of money. What you gonna do with a bag of money? Yeah. From Flow.
Yo, check this. Flow is giving away $30,000 in cash.
Oh, yeah.
2 bags of money plus a grand every Friday.
With Flow is better every day, and now we're making Fridays great. That's 3 ways that you can play. So listen up.
Top up.
$10 more.
Sign up.
Just switch to Flow.
Get a plan.
1 gig or more. If you wanna win cash galore.
With Flow.
Win a bag of money.
Cash out.
Get a bag of money. What you gonna do with a bag of money? Yeah. From Flow.
So top up, get a plan, or switch now to win. It only gets better with Flow.
Flow terms and conditions apply.
A new in-home experience is here. All your services bundled into one simple plan. Faster, more reliable Wi-Fi so that you can binge, play, and stream uninterrupted. Unlimited Flow local landline minutes mean you can talk and talk and talk. Plus the best in TV entertainment with over 120 channels and 29 in HD. All for $160 a month with the new all-in bundle. With Flow, it only gets better.
To end the news, a look again at the headlines. The promise of an exciting budget on Tuesday, while government expenditure continues to exceed revenue. The APP launches what's called Vote in Place or VIP campaign, which would help overseas-based Dominicans to vote in the country's elections. And LIAT could be back in the air in 2 or 3 months' time after shareholder governments agree on plans to rescue the airline. You may access the news on our YouTube channel. On behalf of the production team, I am Julian Morris. Thank you for watching. Join us tomorrow.